All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. Bernard Hopkins is asked about the Terence Crawford versus Shawn Porter fight, what he thinks is going to happen, and he actually issues a big warning to Errol Spence Jr. Let's talk about what he says about those fights in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to talk about the welterweight division, my personal favorite division in boxing. Has some of the best fighters in all of boxing, the deepest division in boxing. Has two universally recognized, not universally, but for the most part recognized, two of the top guys in that division are top 10 pound for pound guys that look like they're on a collision course. And more importantly than that, or more substantially than that, we have a big fight coming up, not this weekend, but the following weekend between Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter. So Bernard Hopkins, I'm sure you know who Bernard Hopkins is. Former long-reigning 160-pound fighter, one of the best middleweight fighters, probably the best middleweight fighter this century. Definitely one of the best fighters of this century, and from the mid-90s on. Beat guys like Tito Trinidad, beat Oscar De La Hoya, fought Roy Jones Jr. when Roy Jones was in his prime, put up a great fight, fought all the way to the age of 50 till he got knocked out the ring by Joe Smith. You know, now currently is an executive or co-owner, I'm not sure which one it is, with Golden Boy Promotions. Definitely one of the best, most knowledgeable guys in boxing. Talks about Terence Crawford and gave his opinion on the fight with Shawn Porter. And he says pretty much that nobody can beat Terence Crawford, and anybody that Terence Crawford fights is going to lose. And he said something that was really, really funny. He said, and nobody should fight him for the next 2 years until he slows down a little bit, because right now he's at his absolute peak. He's a hungry fighter, and he doesn't think anybody would be able to beat Terence Crawford, right? So that goes for, obviously, everybody in that division that is a serious contender. Errol Spence Jr., Shawn Porter, where that fight is coming up, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, and the like, right? So, but this is my take on it, man. I don't really know how much Bernard Hopkins how closely these guys watch Bernard Hopkins watches these guys, because it seems like when you talk about Bernard Hopkins with guys that are not with Golden Boy, it doesn't really seem like he's paying that close attention to the fight. Regardless, just assuming that he really is paying close attention to this, to say that that he can't lose for another 2 years, and that pretty much for anybody up there, if they want to be successful to age out Terence Crawford, I certainly hope that doesn't happen. But that would pretty much mean that, you know, nobody's going to beat him that is currently a champion, because nobody that is currently a champion is going to be sticking around at that division for that long. Errol Spence Jr. is basically going for the strap season right now. He wants to fight the winner of Yordenis. He wants to fight Yordenis Ugas next, but more than likely he's not going to get that fight because of what's going on in the WBA. Wants to fight Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is acting like he doesn't want to fight Errol Spence Jr., but if that fight is going to happen, I don't believe that it's going to take 2 years for that to take place, because if it does, what I see happening with Errol Spence Jr. is Errol Spence Jr. going up and moving up to 154, then maybe up to 160, because he is one of the very few guys in boxing that can actually add significant amount of pay-per-view buys to Canelo Alvarez, either at middleweight or a catchweight up there. And I also know that for sure, because he said it in the past, that that's his long-term plan. So if Errol Spence Jr. was to actually listen to what Bernard Hopkins has to say, that means pretty much that, you know, that he wouldn't be fighting Terence Crawford at all. However, if you assume that what Bernard Hopkins is saying is correct, and no matter whether the fights happen or not and Terence Crawford wins out for the next 2 years, that pretty much means that, you know, that puts Terence Crawford right in line for a fight with Jaron Ennis. And Jaron Ennis, I think, is a guy that 2 years from now will be right where he's right, you know, at that point of winning championships in the welterweight division. I think it'd be really unfortunate if Jaron Ennis had to wait that long to get a shot. But crazier things have happened. If you look at if you look at what's going to happen in 2022, I don't think he's going to get a shot in 2022 because that is the Yordenis Ugas having 2 fights for the WBA belt. Errol Spence Jr. fighting Terence Crawford or Yordenis. So 2022 is pretty much out of the pocket for Jaron Ennis to get a title shot. But in the year of 2023, if that's what he means, like in the second year, that would be the time when I believe Jaron Ennis is going to be ranked by all the top guys. He'll be ranked in the top 1 or 2 with several of the sanctioning bodies, provided he gets those fights, with mid-tier dudes. But even if he doesn't, the sanctioning bodies more than likely are still going to rate him that high because he definitely has a buzz over there on Showtime. And I do believe that Showtime is about to be the hottest network with Canelo Alvarez fighting on those cards. I wouldn't be surprised if Canelo Alvarez kept doing pay-per-view cards that they would not actually get Jaron Ennis to fight on one of those on the undercard for one of those Canelo Alvarez fights and kind of start blowing his name up that way. I'm pretty sure that Showtime is thinking of Jaron Ennis as one of those stars, so he'll be able to get a shot around that time. Also, if Terence Crawford is still fighting 2 years from now, I'm not sure whether or not he's going to actually leave that division and move up to 154. That would be his 4th weight division, and I think at that point in time, he's probably stretching it a little thin. And then he's looking at fighting guys like Jermell Charlo, and some of the bigger guys that are at 154 pounds. So, if anything, man, this just means that Bernard Hopkins thinks that nobody's going to beat Bud until Jaron Ennis makes his debut or gets his title shot. Another thing that Bernard Hopkins said, I'm not going to do a separate video for this, but I'll mention this because I think it's kind of funny. Bernard Hopkins also said that he would be willing to put his fighter Blair Cobb in the ring with Jaron Ennis. So, if you're not familiar with who Blair Cobbs is a Golden Boy fighter. His story is that he's fighting out of Mexico, so he's like a black Mexican. Very, very energetic and I wouldn't say controversial, but just really, really self-promoting, a significantly less obnoxious version and, hate-filled version, a less obnoxious and hate-filled version of Rolly Romero. But he said he would be willing to put him in the ring, Blair Cobb in the ring with Jaron Ennis. I would love to see it, man. I don't know if that's going to actually take Jaron Ennis' career anywhere by beating up Blair Cobb, but at least it would be a very, very entertaining show. But anyway, that's my take on the matter of what Bernard Hopkins had to say about Errol Spence Jr., Terence Crawford, and the rest of the welterweight division. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.